Support for Mission Nonprofit is provided by Thurston Talk.
This program is provided in the public interest by Thurston Community Media. More information at tcmedia.org.
Fostering connections between people, building bridges of understanding, respect, and appreciation for differences, and promoting cooperation within and between local and global communities is the mission of the Rachel Corrie Foundation. Stay tuned to learn more about their work for peace and justice on this edition of Mission Nonprofit. Hello, welcome to Mission Nonprofit. I'm Deborah Vinsel. Every month we invite a local nonprofit organization to come talk about their work. This month we're very pleased to welcome back representatives from the Rachel Corrie Foundation for Peace and Justice. Joining me today are Cindy Corrie, President of the Board of Directors, and Teresa Liba, a board member. So thank you ladies for taking time from your very, very busy schedules, I know, to come and spend some time with us. So we're going to jump right into this. I'm going to start with you, Rachel, since you Cindy, since you bear the name. Tell us about Rachel Corrie. Who was she?
Rachel was my third child. She was an Olympia girl, I would say. Went to school at the Lincoln Options program from kindergarten, first grade through fifth grade, Jefferson Middle School, Capitol High School, and then on to Evergreen. She was a writer and an artist, and her father likes to tell the story about when she was, in her elementary years, and she was at his office, and one of his colleagues asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she looked at him and she said, "I am a poet." So she was, in families, I always think when you have multiple children, you relax a bit, and we did with Rachel, I know that. But she was always just really an interesting person. You knew when she came through the door, particularly as an older person, it was going to be an interesting time. She had a great sense of humor. She had a passion for finding meaningful things to do with her life as she got older. After 9/11 and was at Evergreen, turned to trying to figure out why that had happened. And I just think the community had an enormous impact on Rachel. There were peace groups that were formed at the time. Therese knows about those more than I do because of a job change, Craig and I were in a different part of the country. But Rachel connected with peace and justice organizations during that period. In the course of doing that, she started to learn about Israel and Palestine. And then friends of hers went to something called Freedom Summer, which started the international solidarity movement, began when during what was called the Second Intifada in Israel and Palestine. It was a very challenging, painful, violent time in that region. And there had been a resolution to bring a peacekeeping force to the area, and that was vetoed by the U.S. And as a result, ISM was formed. Israeli and Palestinian activists, Israeli Jewish and Palestinian activists came together to start this organization. And to come and join with Palestinians in nonviolent resistance, you had to just agree to two things: that you believed in freedom for the Palestinian people, and that you agreed to use only nonviolent methods of resistance. Mm-hmm. And so Rachel watched friends make that first trip, Freedom Summer, and come back, and then she learned a great deal. She studied Arabic. She really planned for going there. Talked with faculty and others who had had previous experiences in the West Bank, and then very deliberately chose to go to Gaza because she was told that's where the need was greatest. So in January of 2003, she traveled there. She went through training in the West Bank with the International Solidarity Movement, spent a little time in Jerusalem and in the West Bank, and then went on to Gaza. And she was there for about 7 weeks, working with children and with women's groups. She spent time with children in something called the Children's Parliament, where Palestinian kids in Gaza, even at that time, were trying to understand what was happening, why their world was the way it was, and what they could do about it. Rachel also stayed with families whose homes were threatened with demolition. And the Israeli military at the time was clearing a wide swath of land, trying to widen what was known as the Philadelphia Corridor, which Israel had control over, their military did, even though it was a border between Egypt and Gaza. She would write to us. I mean, part of, I think, the most important thing that she contributed from there was all the communication, the writing that she did that informed our family and Rachel's friends in ways that we hadn't heard before. So she was educating all of us. The day that on March 16th, she was engaged with other activists. She was called to the area where 2 Israeli military bulldozers, Caterpillar D9R bulldozers that had been militarized, were operating and shoving against structures. And they would come up to the activists who were had signs and megaphone. They had a megaphone. Rachel was in an orange jacket to be visible. During the course of the afternoon, they came up and they would stop by the activists. At about 5 p.m. that day, when the activists thought they had been successful, they actually communicated back to their coordinator that the bulldozers had gone out, had moved away from the structures. But then at about 5 p.m., one of them started toward the house of a family where Rachel had stayed. She knew the family was behind the garden wall, that they were watching what was happening. And she stood to say, "I'm not moving from this house," as the bulldozer progressed toward it. And this time the bulldozer didn't stop. And there were 2 soldiers inside of it, the driver, and then a second soldier who was elevated in order to be a second set of eyes. But the bulldozer proceeded over Rachel. Her colleagues there later, testified in court even about what had happened to her. The bulldozer stopped and then backed over her again. And her colleagues came to her immediately, and she was held by them and was pronounced dead shortly after that.
Out of that tragic event, the Rachel Corrie Foundation was born. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the mission and the history of this organization.
Do you want to speak to it, Therese?
Sure. I was one of the founding board members, and Cindy and Craig brought a group together. There was always family members on the foundation board and a faculty member from the Evergreen State College, so I served in that role. We had a diverse group, and the mission was really to carry on Rachel's vision. And Rachel had a vision, as Cindy mentioned, of peace and justice, that we define ourselves as a community through our commitment to justice, challenging oppression and resisting oppression, and also a vision of creativity, art, education, especially for Palestinian human rights. And we've done broad education on Middle East issues. We've continued Rachel's vision to create a sister city with Rafah. And Rafah's in the news much these days. As we know, there's about 1.4 million Palestinians just pushed up against the border between Rafah and Egypt, where Rachel was killed. And we have maintained that relationship with Rachel's Vision and had a number of Gaza-related projects, including Ramadan soccer tournament, cultural events. We've had exchanges with scholars and young students also from there. People have visited. What I can say also about Rachel herself is that her story resonated around the world. Her writing, she was more than a poet. She was just an incredibly beautiful writer who saw and shared what she was experiencing in ways that touched people's hearts. And people described her. I met a journalist in Egypt who described her as the conscience of America, especially as the US was heading into the Gulf War. People compared her to Archbishop Romero. People really celebrated Rachel and her writings, and they circulated very quickly on email at that time after she was killed. So it was both the beauty of her sacrifice that resonated with people around the world, but also her incredible words. And Alan Rickman, also known as Snape, the late Alan Rickman, saw her words. Him and Catherine Viner turned them into a play. My Name is Rachel Corrie. It was translated into many languages. Cindy and Craig traveled around the world for openings of that play, everywhere in Latin America and Tel Aviv, elsewhere. So Rachel's story is, it's a global story. It's a story of the struggle for social justice, for solidarity. And what's interesting in this moment, a lot of her writing is coming back and people are quoting Rachel, and I'm seeing it in many places these days.
The foundation, the Rachel Corrie Foundation for Peace and Justice, has educational programs. Can you tell us about those and how they manifest Rachel's vision?
I think education permeates all the work that we do. We have scholarship programs that are really important to us. The Rachel Corrie Memorial Scholarship at Evergreen is very special to us. Our relationship with Evergreen is very special to us. And we have a committee that reads the scholarship applications each year and makes a decision about which student's going to receive that. We like making connections with that student, and they usually like making connections with us. And those are really very special relationships that we have with those students. I think as well as receiving the funding that they do through a scholarship, just having become the Rachel Corrie Memorial Scholar means a lot to students. So we're really happy locally to be able to support that. We also have scholarships at Birzeit University in the West Bank, which had been for women, and we're actually in transition right now, wanting to do some more work with Birzeit to see if we'd really love to be able to bring a scholar from Gaza for that program, but because movement between Gaza and Birzeit is so difficult, that's been really a very challenging thing to have happen in recent years. And also people who are interested in developing scholarships for students to go to school in Gaza. And of course, we've all seen the pictures now. And so we're not sure what lies ahead. We'll wait for our partners, our friends on the ground to guide us to how that can go forward, that work can go forward. We educate through events locally. I would say, we had amazing, remarkable events that Therese was a part of through the years. Our first conference was in 2006. it started out with us thinking we'd invite one person to come, but then to make sure that we had, significant speakers, we invited multiple women particularly to come, and they all said yes. And so it turned into this remarkable event that was our first PeaceWorks conference. And PeaceWorks became a signature kind of event. Alice Walker was the writer, was one of the people that came, and Therese was able to interview her. And, at that first conference, Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Gandhi, was able to come, and we were able to make that a free event for people in Olympia at the Washington Center. And I run into people every once in a while who say that was the most remarkable experience for them, locally. So we have great memories. COVID certainly changed how all of us function. And I think we're still determining how to go forward, because everything became by Zoom. So we did some webinar things to mark occasions. And now there's such a remarkable amount of information, and our access to voices that we want to hear from is so remarkable that I think it changes how we look at where do we fit into that picture, and how do we want to do things, and just learning about all the different ways now to do those is a challenge for people my age.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Our technology marches on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess the final thing I'd say about education is advocacy is very important to us. So we really work at focusing on our elected officials, whether they're local, city council, or state officials, where we just completed an event supporting, really happy to support a Palestinian-led group in Seattle that is new, that has never done this before at the state legislature. And they held an advocacy day that brought a lot of people. And we planted actually flags that they had created, over 13,000 flags on the Capitol grass. Had a permit to do that, representing the children that to that point had been killed. Palestinian children in Gaza, Palestinian children in the West Bank, and Israeli children. And it was quite remarkable. People came out at 7 a.m. in the morning, in the rain, in the dark, to start that process of getting all those flags in the ground. I'm so appreciative of all the local volunteer help that we had, and people from Seattle as well. But it was very moving to be a part of that, and just to kind of viscerally feel what's happening right now, and that we need to have a response to it.
Well, certainly the international efforts, your efforts in Gaza and with the Palestinian people are such a significant portion of what the foundation puts its efforts toward. But you also do things locally. So what are some of the local issues and initiatives that you have here in the Greater South Sound area?
Well, I mean, one of the things that has helped Evergreen a lot is that we have students interning at the foundation, and that's been a great experience. It's opened doors for students who want to go on to peace and justice work or social work in the community. We have, in collaboration with Art Forces and Dr. Susan Green, we have the mural on 4th and Capitol, the really beautiful olive tree,
with
which is
big leaves.
Yes, with the leaves. And it's representative of the connection, of the local to global connection. Some of the leaves are by local groups and local artists, everything from the Center for Community-Based Learning at Evergreen and Power to international groups in the territories. So we have a Jewish Voice for Peace leaf, we have Palestinian groups, a dance group from one of the refugee camps. We also have indigenous groups and other local groups and regional groups. So that's a beautiful statement of unity and connection, and also the roots of the olive tree. Olive trees are very important in Palestine, very symbolic, trees of life. And the roots are breaking down the walls between us and the wall, also the separation wall in Palestine, and that's symbolic of the possibilities for peace and connection and equality. So that's one, the internship and other local initiatives. I mean, Cindy, the Corries have been really active in the legislative and advocacy work, and we've been doing that more broadly through a group that's formed called the Palestine Action South Sound Group that's meeting regularly. And Cindy mentioned this, but because Rachel's story has so much power, I mean, we have brought some amazing, the foundation really brought incredible people to our community. People, Palestinians, Israeli journalists and writers, Palestinian intellectuals, all the people that you see now in the news, they were here for that Peaceworks conference, you know, those commentators, and, you know, I could go through their names, but it just, Rachel's story touched people's hearts very, very deeply, and Cindy and Craig's work also did, and that's partly why we have the mural in town, because the muralist, Dr. Susan Green from the Bay Area, came and heard the story and wanted to do a mural. So those are a few local initiatives, but I think it's been a great opportunity for the community to learn broadly, and the regular vigils that we have with the Fellowship of Reconciliation on Friday nights as well are just an opportunity. People have space to come and grieve and act for peace and be together in community.
I think the mural it's a living mural, we say, and it's been around now for many years, and we and Art Forces, our partner group, work very hard to maintain it. Susan Green cares deeply about that mural, and so she's up here making sure that the maintenance happens and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of collaboration that happens and networking that happens around the mural, and then new things come out of it. So students at Evergreen and faculty member who was on our board, Zoltan Grossman, developed Olympia's Hidden Histories. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's a project that kind of led from the mural, and there are these amazing tours. If audience members just Google Olympia's Hidden Histories, they'll find their connection to these walking tours that they can do downtown that then are connected. While you walk, you can use your phone to get all this information about what you're passing and what you're seeing. There's one about the Stechas, the Native Americans, what happened there, Olympia's Chinatowns, what's happened with the port, different ones about the port of Olympia. I just encourage people to go there, but I think it's a good example how through networking and partnerships it's challenging sometimes to find the time for those, to cultivate them. We all are limited on our time, but when we do, just remarkable things happen. There are new ideas, and as Therese mentioned, right now there's a surge in interest in the work that we do and in this issue. We had an event soon after October 7th, which was a tragic day. And we filled, the Olympia Center room that we had reserved, and then just by word of mouth, we said we'll have a meeting for people who want to organize around this. A week or so later, again, rented a small room at the Olympia Center, one that holds 25 to 30. 95 people came. And then what's remarkable to me is we had a meeting last night, the same group in a different location, but the room is packed with people that just feel compelled to do their thing, and we break down into committees. So there are people working on art. There are people working on fundraising for Gaza relief. There are people working on outreach and education, and people sharing ideas. I'm on the legislative committee, so I try to help people develop whatever plans they have for approaching public officials, and it's just really remarkable to me. What's happening in our community.
So can you share a little bit about upcoming events and volunteerism opportunities with the foundation? So what's coming up in the next several months?
Yeah. we have observances all year long, and we do try, we have a list of those that we try to respond to through writing or through events. The upcoming ones are the day that Rachel was killed, March 16th. We try to mark that each year. When community members came to me on the first anniversary of Rachel's death and wanted to do something, I said, it can't be just about mourning for Rachel. It has to be, there have to be some other elements. And I think I probably identified 3 at the time, which is community building, education, and action. And so those continue to be 3 components that we think about when we're putting together these events. And we will have an event on March 16th this year, 2024. It'll be the 21st anniversary of Rachel's killing. I think we're definitely planning to meet at the Washington State Labor Center. It'll be an afternoon event. And we're planning for, there's a short film that we have about Rachel that we'll be able to show, but then we'll think about bringing Gaza voices into it. People want to bring poetry into it, and we'll share some dessert and tea or something, and bring, again, community members together to talk about what they're needing right now, and also to bring organizations together. One thing I didn't mention is that we have a liaison. We have a member from the Rachel Corrie Foundation that goes to the Olympia Coalition for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons. That's one of our regular things too. So that group, I'm sure, will be there on the 16th as well. We try to include them in work that we're doing, in events that we're doing as well. But other organizations, Strengthening Sanctuary is another one. Jewish Voice for Peace Tacoma is a partner of ours, but now there's a developing Jewish Voice for Peace Olympia and Squaxin, I think, pod. And it's just gotten underway since the events of last fall. So, and what's currently going on. But we really appreciate those connections that we have.
One other upcoming event is Arts Walk and the presence at the mural. We usually have tabling. We're working to, I'm working with Susan Green to bring also some artwork by Gazan artists. And so we have a plan to bring some of them, and then also to show local solidarity art as well. And we just did some measurements. We have a little office in the Brotherhood Tavern up there, and we're soliciting artwork for people who are interested. They can go to the Olympia Rafa Solidarity Mural site and see, and so we'll have a combination of Gazan artists and some local and regional artists as well at the mural. And we're also hoping to have some music. So we're working on on multiple fronts. So there's both the kind of celebration and fundraising piece to that, and that would be to raise money for people in Gaza.
Gaza Relief.
Gaza Relief, probably the Middle East Children's Alliance.
Well, we are at the end of our time. It goes so quickly, and I feel like there's so much more that we could be talked about. Quickly, how can people find out more information about the foundation?
We have a website, the Rachel Corrie Foundation website. People can contact us by email at info@rachelcorriefoundation.org or by telephone at 360-754-3998. And we love volunteers, whether people are able to help at an event, once a year, or host guests that are coming to town or whatever. We appreciate those volunteers as well as regular people helping, several hours a week sometimes. As Therese said, we have a lot of student involvement, and I love that. It's kept us young. And so we welcome volunteers. They should just get in touch with us, and then we meet and figure out what they're interested in, what skills they have, what skills they'd like to develop, and we do our best to provide a meaningful experience.
Okay. Well, Teresa Liba, Cindy Corrie, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us. And thank you for your work to advocate for peace and justice in our world. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks for
so
being
much.
here. Thank you for watching. We'll be back again next month with another nonprofit guest on Mission Nonprofit. If you'd like more information about the Rachel Corrie Foundation, go to rachelcorriefoundation.org. Thanks for watching.